When news of the controversial Afrikaner verdict broke this week, the political landscape in South Africa was immediately thrown into turmoil. Reports confirm that President Cyril Ramaphosa, visibly shaken by the potential consequences, convened an emergency closed-door meeting late into the night at the Union buildings. Only a select circle of ministers, advisors, and legal experts were allowed in, a clear signal of the gravity of the moment. The verdict, which has sparked anger, relief, and confusion in equal measure, is being described as one of the most divisive legal rulings in post-apartheid South Africa. While details of the judgment are still unfolding, its implications cut deep into unresolved historical tensions between Afrikaner identity, the legacy of apartheid, and the ongoing struggle for justice and reconciliation. For Ramaphosa, whose presidency is already under immense pressure from economic instability, party infighting, and corruption scandals, this verdict presents a new crisis that could fracture the already fragile balance of his leadership. Insiders at the meeting described the president as grave, reflective, and deeply concerned as he listened to reports from Justice Minister Ronald Lamola and other cabinet members. According to leaks, Ramaphosa demanded clarity on how the state would respond, should government respect the court's decision to avoid undermining the rule of law, or should it challenge the verdict to prevent an explosion of public outrage. It is a dilemma with no easy answers. What makes this verdict so incendiary is the symbolism attached to it. For many, it represents unfinished business in the struggle to dismantle systemic privilege and historical injustices. For Afrikaner communities, however, it is being hailed by some as a restoration of rights and by others as a validation of grievances long ignored by the state. The polarity of public reactions has already begun to seep into social media, protests, and whispered conversations in Parliament's corridors. Ramaphosa's emergency meeting reportedly turned heated at several points. Some ministers urged the president to take a firm stance against the verdict, fearing it could embolden right-wing nationalist groups. Others, however, warned against a political overreach that might be interpreted as executive interference in judicial processes. The legal team present reminded Ramaphosa of the constitutional tightrope he must walk, defending the independence of the judiciary while also upholding the principles of equality and justice that South Africa's democracy is built on. Meanwhile, opposition parties wasted no time in using the verdict as political ammunition. The Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, branded the ruling as an insult to the blood of those who fought for liberation, while the Democratic Alliance, DA, cautiously framed it as the test for the independence of the courts and the resilience of democracy. Civil society organizations and human rights groups have also demanded that Ramaphosa make his stance clear, warning that silence could fuel uncertainty and unrest. Behind closed doors, however, Ramaphosa appeared less focused on political point scoring and more worried about the possibility of the ruling igniting racial tensions at a national scale. The president reportedly tasked intelligence officials to assess the risk of protests or retaliatory actions from radical groups on either side of the divide. One advisor was quoted as saying, "The president knows this is more than just a legal verdict, it's a powder keg that could undo years of fragile reconciliation." As dawn broke over Pretoria, the emergency meeting finally adjourned, but no definitive decision had been reached. Ramaphosa left the Union buildings in silence, avoiding reporters. Officially, the presidency has yet to issue a statement, fueling speculation that deep divisions exist within government ranks on how to respond. What remains clear is that the Afrikaner verdict has opened a new chapter in South Africa's ongoing struggle with its past and its future. For Ramaphosa, the stakes could not be higher. How he navigates this crisis may well define his presidency. A misstep could alienate either side of the political spectrum, risk inflaming social unrest, and weaken his already fragile hold on power within the ANC. In the days ahead, South Africans will be watching closely, not just the president's words, but his actions. For now, however, all eyes remain fixed on what was said and decided behind those tightly shut doors.